When teaching a memory verse, you're doing three things. You're going to go through the reference, which is the book of the Bible, the chapter and the verse. There will be key words that you'll have to repeat and explain. It's part of the lesson of the memory verse. And then the third thing is actually memorizing the verse through repetition. I'd like to show you the different parts of this so that when you teach the children, each of us has kind of a similar way of teaching, and it will help you in your study to know more about the verse and know how to teach the children. The most important truth is that they need to know God, and they can do that only through Jesus Christ. As you can see, this is a short verse, but we're going to look at the reference first, and you need to know something about John. John is a gospel. And this is what you do with each of the books. You need a reference. If it's in Romans or 1 Peter, you need to know a little bit about that book. So John was written by John. John was a disciple of Jesus. He wrote a first-hand witness of what Jesus said and what he saw and what he heard. And he's trying to get people to know that Jesus was a real person and he was also God. Now, John has 22 chapters. This is the 11th chapter. So John, in the 11th chapter of this book, the 35th verse, we find this short little verse, this short sentence. Now that's the reference. Each time you teach about the reference, you want the kids to say, what is the reference? John 11:35. The next thing we look at are the key words, and I like to use different color ink if you have this possibility. If not, you can italicize or draw different types of letters, and it works too. But we want to talk about the key words of the verse. I'm doing this very simply. A longer verse may take too long. We only have about 6 to 7 minutes to teach this verse, and after that, we're going to lose the younger kids. May lose them anyway. But here we have two key words, Jesus and wept. And we want to teach the kids what these key words are. We start with the word wept, because we want people to assume they know that word Jesus, but the word wept, they probably think they know what it means, but let's demonstrate it. Does anybody here, we can ask, know what the word wept means? And somebody raised their hand. Can somebody demonstrate what the word wept means? You get someone to boo-hoo-hoo-hoo cry, which is great. And you have everybody do it. You may want to give a reward to somebody who does the best job of weeping. But you may want to go further and say weeping is what somebody does when they are in great inner pain, when somebody dies. Which then gives you the chance to say the context. Jesus wept because his very good friend Lazarus had just died, and he was going to the tomb to where they had buried or laid Lazarus. And so his heart was broken. Now the ramification of this is that Jesus was really human. He had deep emotions just like all humans, and it shows that God himself cares deeply for people who are hurting because he hurt, so he wept because other people were very sad and they were hurting on the inside. Now we ask the next question, who is Jesus? And kids may have a variety of answers. So that's the reference, John 11:35. We've explained that. We've explained key words. The kids get a lesson while you're talking through the key words. And now we come to the part that is the memorization. And I ask kids to say the words with me. Repeat the words of this verse. In repeating, I'm going to say it slowly so that they get the exact words. Younger kids are going to not read it, they're going to mouth the words after me. So I have to say it slowly, deliberately, and I point to the words as a traffic cop, keeping them slowed down to the word that I'm pointing to. So I read, Jesus wept, John 11:35. Simple enough. Now I'll say, I'm going to begin to erase words and see if you can remember what word it was or a number that I erased. And the first thing we're going to erase is the number 35. Everybody say 35. Get them to say it. Okay, let's read this verse together again. Jesus wept. John 11. Go Don't say it for them. Let them say 35. Everybody get that? Let's say it again. Jesus wept. John 11:35. Repeat it. Let's erase another word or number. Let's do this again. Jesus wept. John 11:35. I'll do it slowly. I'm going to erase another word, but this time let's do it a little differently. Everybody turn around. Look to the back. Close your eyes. And you tell me which word I've erased after you turn around. Everybody close your eyes. Turn around. Okay, turn back around. Do you know what word it was that I erased? Okay, and everybody says, what? Okay. Now let's say this verse again. You don't see the words or numbers, do you? But we know what they are. Jesus wept. John 11:35. Who can stand up and say that verse right now? Get some child to stand up. These are all little devices. Write it down. These little devices need to remember. Get someone to say it. Probably the brainiest kid. Maybe some kid that loves to be extroverted raises his hand and says, I want to do it, but they really don't know it. Then just affirm, encourage, and that was really a good try. Why don't you try the next word, okay? Well, let's erase another word. Let's do this verse again. Jesus wept. John 11:35. They're beginning to get the verse. Okay, turn around. No, we don't need to turn around. Let's erase the final word. And now we know. Jesus wept. John 11:35. Everybody say it together. Jesus wept. John 11:35. Anybody want to stand up and say this verse? And now they have the verse memorized. So we have three things to do. Explain the reference. That means there needs to be a little bit of research about who wrote the book. And do a short presentation or lesson about that person, chapter and verse. Don't assume that all kids know chapter and verse. Not everybody's going to know. So make sure they say each of the books of the Bible are divided into chapters, just like a normal book. And then each chapter has verses. Make sure you say that. And then the second part of the lesson is to talk through the key words. You've got to do a little bit of research. You have to do something on your own back home to know what those key words are. Don't go into great detail because it's going to bore little kids. You have 6 to 7 minutes. Then the final thing we do is a few tricks or devices to help kids memorize a verse.